The Commission of Inquiry into State Capture has been characterized by damning testimony, dramatic confessions, and staggering details of the extent of corruption in the public sector. This week was no different. Notorious former Bosasa Chief Operating Officer Angelo Agrizzi returned to the Commission to give more testimony into the company's corrupt activities implicating high-ranking politicians and government officials. ENCA's Erin Bates has been covering the story for us, and she joins me in the studio to take us through the revelations made this week. We also have political analyst Levi Ndo. Welcome, Levi.
Good evening to you.
Pleasure to have you with us. And Erin, you enjoy the front row seat, right? Just before we started with this, I was asking about the whole demeanor of Angelo Agrizzi. I mean, do you think that he's getting used to appearing before the Commission now, and also that he's become a personality of sorts in South Africa? What is your sense of him?
I think that sort of razzle-dazzle has worn off a little bit, and there were times during his testimony this week where things felt quite beleaguered and slow. And, you know, he's been pressed to provide a lot of backing evidence for his allegations in the form of documents, records, and the like. So I think that initial bravado and kind of show that we saw from Angelo Agrizzi has worn off a little bit. And, of course, we heard from him that he's had subsequent death threats, including a poisoned letter in isiZulu that was left on his windscreen when he was in a meeting at a restaurant with some of the inquiry's legal team or investigators. So I think some of the realities of the risk he's at and that he's himself disclosed are showing in his performance as a witness.
But you know what he revealed the first time shocked a lot of people, and I don't think many expected that he will come up with such damning revelations once again. What stood out for you?
Well, what stood out for me, of course, was his claim around this check that he initially said was going to the ANC top six, and which he clarified today was, on his understanding, intended for the organization of the ANC and was dispatched to the top six at a meeting with the Bosasa delegation. So that I thought quite significant, some of the finer details of his allegations against Dudu Myeni. And then, of course, you couldn't but, you know, stand agog when you heard the slew of different gifts he claimed that former prisons boss Linda MT received, including 2 pairs of shoes in an Italian import shop that caught his eye in Umhlanga, and that Gavin Watson sort of authorized Angelo Agrizzi to swipe on his Bosasa credit card, goes the allegation. That, along with golf clubs, along with cars, a customized house bought for MT on the allegations, and clothes which were tailored at a high-end shop in a Johannesburg mall. So those sorts of things are a bit tabloid-esque, but they really do grip your attention when you hear the claims.
And why did he mention the Pope, by the way?
Well, he mentioned the Pope several times, and he in fact also referred to a segment of the New Testament today where he spoke about what Gavin Watson said they would do if they were ever put behind bars. They're speaking about the Apostle Paul and another biblical character whose name escapes me, but basically they were in prison, they were shackled, and they prayed and sang, and then there was an earthquake and the shackles were broken. And so Gavin Watson allegedly said the same thing, musing what Bosasa would do if they were ever imprisoned. But onto the Pope, Agrizzi mentioned the Pope in terms of that Italian import shoe shop in Umhlanga. He said they supplied shoes, which the Pope also likes to wear. And then he also mentioned the Pope in an analogy about cardinals and the chief cardinal then having the ear of the Pope, and that meaning that naughty cardinals who gamble and the like wouldn't quibble or test their relationship with that chief cardinal.
And not that the Pope was implicated in...
No, we haven't gotten that crazy.
To do with the Pope in that regard. Well, earlier today, my colleague spoke to the ANC's Dakota Lehuete, and this is Jeremy Maggs who spoke to Dakota Lehuete about a possible internal investigation into Angelo Agrizzi's claim that Bosasa paid party executives, or the top 6, millions of rands, and this was his response.
Surely you'd be running an internal, or about to run an internal investigation into claims as serious as this.
Yes, we are.
Is that underway?
Yes, that is underway through the Treasurer General's office, because that's the office that can receive donations on behalf of the organization And that's the office that is responsible for the assets of the ANC, as well as the daily running of our finances.
So let's put this on the record. As a result of these allegations made by Mr. Agrizzi, the Treasurer General of your party is now investigating those claims. There is a formal probe underway within the party itself.
Yeah, there's a formal probe, but that probe is also part of our preparations for our submission before the Commission, in case the Commission was to grant us an opportunity to make a cross-examination. So it is for purposes of our details, because we can't take the allegations very simple, because those particular allegations made by Mr. Agrizzi, we can't also even wait for our submission. We have to challenge them, because if they are left unchallenged, they will create an impression that the ANC is just another animal where corruption is a haven.
But apart from that, there's now a political and electoral motive behind this, because allegations like this untested could kill you in the election, which you yourself have said is just 6 weeks away.
Yes, that's why
you're really worried about this, aren't you?
No, we are really worried about this, because you know that as it is the case now, all our leaders, all our members, all our alliance partners and supporters are on the ground to canvass for the African National Congress, and such allegations bring into question the reputational standing of us as an organization.
The reputation,
but also
issues of morality within your own party and senior members.
That's correct, because he speaks about the top six. The top six, it includes also our president, who's the face of the campaign, because once you say top six, it means you are attempting to deface our campaign, including the president, who's our leader.
And that's Mr. Dakota Lehuete, who spoke to Jeremy Meggs earlier on. And even though, this is why I invited you, ANC justified to be concerned that the Agrizzi appearance at the State Commission does or will have an effect on their election campaign. Your take?
Indeed, the revelations that we're getting now at the Commission, ever since it started, you know, it has a lot of negative effects on the ANC and its campaign now. Look, we're only left with very few days to go to elections. And each time when there are people that are appearing at the Commission, the finger always points at the ANC. And whether the ANC likes it or not, it's going to create a very, very huge hole on the part of the ANC. But also, you know, one other area that I heard Dakota talking about is that they seem to be disputing some of the information that is coming from Agrizzi. The reason might be that he might not be aware that there were these corrupt transactions that were going on. But also at the same time, you might also find some people within the ANC who are very much aware that this is an establishment that we've created, and this establishment is supposed to fund the activities of the party. But also at the same time, there is a possibility that we might have some members who are not aware that this is a corrupt transaction, and all they were doing was to say, we've got people that are fundraising for the ANC, and then we just have to utilize the resources as they are. Maybe what we need to do, which cannot solve the problems now for the ANC, we still have to wait for the cross-examination so that the information that is coming has to be tested.
Well, let's take this call first. I've got a question for you, because there's talk that President Cyril Ramaphosa may have misjudged the situation by allowing the commission to go ahead as far as the interests of the ANC are concerned. And many people would say, actually, it's the right thing that he has done, because the best way to solve the problem is to bring it out into the open instead of looking after the interests of a political party. But Lincoln is joining us on the line from Modderfontein. Lincoln?
Okay, thank you. Yes, my view is that, you know, it's very unfortunate that in South Africa, our votes are always based on how people are feeling emotionally. Now, what I think what President Ramaphosa has managed to do by allowing the State Capture Commission to continue with its work is that he has disconnected those that are implicated in the state capture from the current ANC that he is proposing to be leading. But in reality, any smart person would know that it's still the very same people, as we've seen in the lists. The same people are being implicated, but South Africans and the average voter will just see it as Cyril Ramaphosa is cleaning up. So it's very unfortunate that the state capture revelations may not necessarily affect the votes, even though in reality we know the ANC has not changed.
Levi, is that your sense out there, as far as the voters go, that it will not influence their view of the ANC come voting time?
Well, it might influence the voters to a certain extent. But look, Tim, there are individuals who are in the ANC list that are having a huge cloud hanging over them. Now, that then talks about the nature and the character of the ANC, because it is the same branches, regions and provinces that will still go out and nominate the very same people that are implicated. But also, one of the areas that we need to look at is that in this kind of a situation, you don't get the ANC that is coming out clear to say, we are going to be firm on those that are actually implicated. In Polokwane, for an example, you have a region that is saying people that were implicated in the VBS saga should not be removed from ANC activities. Actually, they must go back and participate actively. Yeah. So that then tells you about the nature and the character of the party. And indeed, it has an implication, seriously, on the voter come the 8th of May.
Well, I want to talk about the president in a short while, but Erin, coming back to you, what sense are you getting in as far as the state capture inquiry is concerned, particularly with the evidence presented by Angelo Agrizzi? I mean, they went to the provinces, right? The last time there wasn't much talk about what's going on at provincial level, and Agrizzi, also referred to municipalities.
He did, and he actually mentioned an allegation around the Northern Cape Education Department and a corrupt tender there, he says, happened right before his final departure from Bosasa. And that involved an alleged once-off payment to the sister in the Education Department linked to a provincial politician who received a bribe, he says, of about 1.25 million rand once off. But just to come back to what Lincoln said and also to touch on your comments as well, firstly, important to note that, of course, former President Jacob Zuma, in the last and latter days of his presidency, actually signed off the commission. And then its work began and the wheels started turning once Cyril Ramaphosa was president. His name and the name of his son, Andile Ramaphosa, have come up in relation to Bosasa, in relation to a Chinese company called Dahua Technology, of which Andile Ramaphosa was a former director of a South African iteration of that company. So some of the biggest names in the governing party are under scrutiny here. Gwede Mantashe, the former Secretary General, now Mineral Resources Minister, Dudu Myeni, who has significant political ties, and then, of course, Nomvula Mokonyane. So that's two sitting ministers who are on the list of the governing party going forward. And, of course, it's a very difficult dance for the president to do.
As we end this interview, I would like to find out from you, who do you think is more keen to cross-examine Agrizzi? Because last night, I think it was, Minister Nomvula Mokonyane said that she wants to cross-examine him. Do you know of any other people? And what do you make of that anyway? How early do you think that is likely to happen?
Yes, well, the minister's issued a statement to show that she is very eager now to approach the commission exercise her rights. She has a grievance about not initially receiving notice of her implication. Dudu Myeni has not indicated at this point a wish to cross-examine Agrizzi. Neither has former President Jacob Zuma, who was implicated during the last round of evidence. But interesting you asked that question because, of course, we now know the ANC is intent on cross-examining Agrizzi too. Gavin Watson, we haven't heard from at all at the Commission. But it's a very difficult process and time, of course, for the governing party. But then again, the Commission has also been kind of displayed and framed as something that's doing a clean up, that's kind of purging all of the demons of the ANC's past. But as for who's the most eager to cross-examine Agrizzi, it's a very hard thing to say without having a crystal ball.
So what's going to happen next week? Do you know? What direction are they taking at the Commission?
I have an inkling because we heard from Advocate Paul Pretorius, Senior Counsel of the inquiry's legal team, that the witness due on Monday is another Bosasa witness. It's someone who's away this weekend apparently and needs to be interviewed, and he said he or she will finally be interviewed, which suggests there was some kind of, long process to get to this point, but we don't know who it is.
Okay, so we wait for Monday, and thanks again, Aaron. We follow what you say on Twitter and other social media platforms. enjoying the front row seat there. And Livindo, thanks again for paying us a visit.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Increasing violence in the construction industry has allegedly disrupted infrastructure projects worth billions, and stakeholders have called on the government to intervene. We'll be speaking to them next.